Yeah, Dan, you're right. It goes from nothing to you hit a button and we're just flooded all at once.
Yeah. Stephen Carter, I think we're talking later today.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right, this is the preview.
All right.
Cool. Hey, Bill. Been a while.
All right, Dan is going to keep entertaining you and saying hello as I admit everybody is
Yeah, we're
there.
letting everyone in.
Good
We'll
to
get
see you,
started
Dan.
in a couple minutes, but thanks for joining today. I after leaving Disney, now it's my wife and I and the dog. So I like to anytime I can get and hang out with people, a group of people is good for me. So
Just for fun, I always like to see this when we do something like this in the chat. Put where you're from. So while we're waiting, as I get everybody in here, let us know where you're from.
here's what we'll do. The person furthest away from Boulder, Colorado gets a free book. So if you want a free book, I don't know. I think Deshaun won again. he always wins with that whole Netherlands location.
I don't
You
know.
keep
Dan, there's
giving
Abu
these
Dhabi.
things, so yeah, then I
Look at
win.
Greece and Abu Dhabi represented.
All right, we might have to do. We'll do U.S. and international. Make it.
Yeah, Dan, we could add a twist on it. So the person furthest from you gets a book, and then how about the person closest to me?
That's even harder because no
Okay.
one's close.
So whoever is closest to Port Townsend, Washington, will also get a book. Port Townsend is where I'm at, and Dan has been here, and as he said, there's not too many people close to me.
It's a great place. I'm not putting it down, but I just it's up there.
It is. We are about as far north and west as you can get and still be in the country. Although we were put on the map a few years ago, the Twilight series. Anybody read the Twilight books? I did not read them, but they were based not far from where I live. And in fact, so I'll give you Dan, can I tell a story here before we get going? Okay, so I have not read the book, so I may be a little off on the story, but the author needed a way for vampires to be out in the daytime. So she did a Google to find out the wettest, darkest place in the country, and she got Forks, Washington. But she was from Arizona, so she had never been out here. So she wrote the story, and then she came out here, went to Forks, and then filled in all the details. Loved it so much that she bought a house not too far from where, just a few miles from where I live. So she really liked it once she got out here.
Very cool.
All right, Dan, the admittance has slowed down. We still have some that are showing up, but it's slowed down, so I can pay attention a little more now. Well, I see Claudine's with us. Hi, Claudine. And we got a whole bunch of people telling where they were from, Dan, but I admit I wasn't looking. I see one Orlando, a Pittsburgh, Austin, Long Island.
Bill and I. He's the president of the Florida Attractions Association. I worked with him for a couple of years when I was at Disney, so they're going strong.
One of our board members, so we appreciate your service and everything you're still doing for the attractions industry, Dan.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Oh, Dan, we've got Beijing, China.
Oh,
There you go. There's a winner.
that was. I don't have them on the RSVP.
Well, they're here. Sam Zhu. All right. You ready to roll, Dave?
I am on page 21 of 28. And for those who are listening, I didn't realize that LinkedIn did not put the passcode in the invitation. So I'm having to go through and manually enter a message to everyone that had registered, and it takes a little while to burn through 307 people. So
All right. How you all got in? You saw the password? All right, that's working. Good, good, good.
just wait like maybe 2 more minutes. Let me get a few more in before you head off.
Got
It's
it.
there. You just have to really dig for it.
Ah. Well, I'll tell you, my wife and I were Valerie and I were in South America for a month. We got back last night and we went out to do some errands. And everywhere we walked in, we had our mask on and everyone's looking at us like, hey, we don't do that anymore. So I was surprised. It's nice to see. It was strange. It's like coming back to a different country that there's less masks. Brazil, everyone's wearing a mask. In Brazil, I mean, they're on it. They're still going through vaccinations. But if you we were in Rio de Janeiro, typically the typical cultural thing in Brazil, the masks are actually bigger than the bikinis down there. So people on the beach were wearing their bikinis and their masks. So it was pretty impressive.
That's interesting, aside from the bikinis, but just that to wear them outdoors, that's one thing that you haven't seen a whole lot here.
Right. Yeah, people are on it. All right. So we are going to go ahead and roll and welcome everyone. Thanks for being here today. I think, like I said, I think the world is always going to have crisis. And obviously we're in the middle of a crisis right now with what's happening in Ukraine. And I have been inspired by the reaction I've seen from the world. It's a fine line to walk to not have a war escalate, but at the same time, make sure that we're, helping countries and coming together. And I guess for context, I remember a few years ago, I think Barack Obama made a speech and he said, basically, today there's the least violence in the world that there's ever been in the history of humankind. And it's kind of hard to imagine that with all the things we hear about. But at the same time, we hear about everything real time. So I think it's a little bit misleading. But I still have a very optimistic view of the future. COVID is hopefully going behind us. It's going to be with us for forever now. But I think probably the world is much more prepared, hopefully, in the future of how to combat this and how to deal with it. And the world, it's been spinning for thousands of years, and it will continue to spin. So that's my philosophical rant for this morning before we jump into this. But real quick, my name is Dan Cockerell. I was with the Walt Disney Company for 26 years, worked there in college. And after college, went back down and got my first job parking cars at Epcot, and then had a great opportunity to go work in France to open Disneyland Paris in April of 1992. So I got there in January of 92, and we opened the park in April. Of course, as I like to tell people, I did international parking to open the parks. I had domestic parking. Now I had 2 skill sets, and ended up staying over there for 5 years. My wife, as we kind of joke, I got my green card. We had a 4-week engagement and got married so I could get my green card and stay. And I'm happy to say we're still married. We've been married for 28 years. So every year for our wedding anniversary, she still asks me, did you get married with me just for the green card? I say, well, maybe or maybe not, but I'm hanging around. So our son was born over there. We moved back to Florida in 1997 and spent the next 21 years at Walt Disney World, 19 different jobs, and ended my career there as the vice president of the Magic Kingdom. And then we have 3 kids, and as the third one was getting ready to leave home, we said, well, what's next? And so ended up leaving Disney, and Valerie and I have started our own consulting company, Cockerell Consulting. She was in retail for many years with Disney and was a facilitator at the Disney Institute for about 6 years. So we combined forces and are now working all around the world with everything we've learned over our careers. And a kind of a fun, unexpected thing was how much we've learned over the past 4 years since leaving. The world is a big, interesting place, and we have been able to been exposed to so many more companies and cultures since we left Disney, and now are really taking all that information and incorporating it into what we do. We do leadership workshops. I do keynote speeches. I have an online community. Claudine Pohl is on the call today. She's our community manager, and we actually have a cruise coming up in March 17th with our perch, and we're all going to meet each other for the first time. Although we've been talking to each other for over a year, we're going to meet in person and be able to connect. I have a book called How's the Culture in Your Kingdom? And my wife is working on a book right now called Manage Like a Mother, which she kind of debuted when we were in Brazil. And what else we got? So anyway, we like getting involved. There's a lot of stuff to do now with technology. It's still, I never take it for granted that we can all stand here and I can talk to you and you can talk to me live like this. I don't care how much more technology evolves. For me, this is always such a neat thing to know that we're able to do this. And I'm sure we're just getting started. So I wanted to spend today maybe speaking for 20, 25 minutes and just sharing what a message about what I believe about leadership, about running businesses. And then we're going to open up the rest for Q&A. My partner, Jody Mayberry, is on the call. We've been working together for many years now. He started out and hosting my father's podcast for many years ago, and we have partnered up now. So we do podcasts together, come rain or shine, and we partner on all kinds of different projects and do things together. So he's my, as I like to say, he's my color man, or maybe the straight guy. I don't know. It changes, but he's a great entrepreneur and has helped a lot of executives as they come out of their careers really jumpstart and figure out how to be entrepreneurs, which is really hard after you've been with big corporation for so long. So today, like I said, we're going to do my talk, and then we'll do Q&A. And this is my favorite part of this, is just whatever you have on your mind, put in the chat box. Jody's going to be monitoring that. We'll have raise your hand at the end here, and we'll go up until the end of the hour. So I'm going to pop up my. I don't have many slides, but I did want to share this. And once again, a lot of you, this is not going to be new news for you, but Valor and I, we love simplicity and we love basics. And I think what we've learned over our careers working for Disney and now running our own company, the basics work. If you get the basics right, you're going to be successful, even through difficult times like COVID. And I thought, when I left Disney, becoming an entrepreneur, the phone rang, people hired us and paid us. And I wondered why entrepreneurship was such a big deal, because I always heard how tough it was. And then COVID hit. And I said, oh, this is entrepreneurship, when everyone cancels all your workshops and all your keynote speeches and you're at home with nothing to do. That's what entrepreneurship is about. That's when you get tested. But once again, today I'm going to take you through, if you want to get some insight in a keynote speech I do or a workshop we do together, this is the base of everything. It's the base of everything we talk about, everything we run our business around, and everything that we focus on in this. And it's a very simple model, but it is not easy to execute, like most things in life. The things that are the easiest to understand are often the hardest to do, like being married for many decades or having kids, or having a long career, or living through your life and finding happiness. Really easy to understand, very hard to do. So I want to start out with how we think about the goal of any organization. And I call those sustainable results. You want to get sustainable results in order to have, whether you're a nonprofit, you're a for-profit, to have a sustainable results over time. So I'll ask everyone, and maybe you can we're going to do a little of the chat group participation here. What do you think is the main goal of organizations to have sustainable results? What do you have to create to have sustainable results as a company? I know it's a very open-ended question, but I'm interested to hear what you think. We got relationships. What else we got? Profit, an epic team, a healthy culture, a healthy work environment. So I'm going to give you some hints here. Think more about the business results. what is the most important thing for you to get sustainable business results? Consistency, which was the title of this today. Product that people want, customers, credibility. All right, we got the first ring the bell, repeat customers. So you want people to come back. So let me talk about that for a minute. Once again, very simple. Repeat customers. We spend, and organizations spend a lot of money on advertising, a lot of money to get people's attention, whether that's billboards or Super Bowl commercials or banners online. We try to get people's attention, because getting people's attention is really hard. It was hard before, and it's really hard these days. I've never had someone email me and say, hey, Dan, I randomly came across your website and I read it and I'd like to hire you for a keynote speech. I don't think that's ever happened. It's always someone who has told someone that they want to send them my way. So I want you to think about the businesses you're in. You try to get people's attention, you give them a deal. If you join now, you can get a free month for $49.99. And that's not all. We'll throw in these knives. You try to get people's attention. A lot of organizations focus on that. And as we talk about in sales, that's the beginning of the funnel. You got to get customers into your funnel. Whether you're running a ski resort, you're running a lemonade stand, you're running a theme park, a bank, you got to get new customers coming into that funnel for growth. That's one of the keys to growth. Now, once they become a customer of yours, they buy your service, they buy your product, you are now in the perfect position to really sell them what you do. And that's deliver the experience to them. So getting their attention the first time is the hard part. Once you have them, you can now show that whatever product you sold them, whatever service you provided them, it was a great value. It may not be cheap, but it was a great value. And there's no doubt that they're going to come back to you again. And that repeat customer, whether it's they're changing your oil, it's a car dealership, and I can go on forever about businesses, but that's the key to business. I have to have people coming back again. And if I use the Disney example here, there are not enough people in the United States to go to Disney once. When you look at around over 50 million visitors a year, technically, if Disney could get everyone to come once, in 4, 5, 6 years, they're out of business because there's no one left. So people have to come back again. And the other piece, which is probably even more important, is, so that's intent to return, intent to recommend. How likely are you going to recommend this product or service to somebody else? And you've all had that question, right? Hey, I'm moving to Denver. Does anyone know a good real estate agent? Everyone's got a real estate agent they're going to recommend. They're not going to recommend someone they had a bad experience with, but people like recommending things that they've had good experiences with. And when you get that recommendation, first, it is highly credible because it's coming from someone you know. It's coming from a colleague, it's coming from a friend, a neighbor, or a family member. And so if you trust that person, you're going to consider the recommendation, and you're going to stay in the hotel they recommend. You're going to go to the restaurant they recommend. And you're more likely to do that. It's also a warm introduction. When someone refers you and they've been referred by somebody you just automatically psychologically have more trust because you associate them with someone you're familiar with. And that's very powerful also. And we live in a world of recommendations. If you go to your Uber app, you all have a score. You have a score as a customer. Every time you take an Uber ride, you're rated on how you are as a passenger, and you have an opportunity to rate the driver. And that score decides lots of things. It decides what rides they get. Do they get the longer rides? Do they get the more profitable rides? If you have a high score in Uber as a customer, you get a car faster. And that's all done with technology. And if you go to the extreme in China, you have a social score. And I know that's a big thing there. Now, sometimes this can be taken too far, but the fact is that we're all trying to be recommended to others. And whether you go to TripAdvisor or you go to Google Ads, whatever you look at, you're looking for 4 or 5 stars. And when you're going quickly, you're gonna use those as a good indicator. So when I got my guest service scores every month, whatever area I was working in at Disney, I went directly to intent to recommend and intent to return. because that told me how that business was going to do in the next business cycle. At Walt Disney World, that happens to be every 3 to 5 years. It's kind of the cycle. If you come, you're probably going to come back in 3 to 5 years from now. At a restaurant, that may be 2 months or 3 months from now, but it's a good indicator of what the future is going to look like. Something I'm sure everyone here is very familiar with is the Net Promoter Score, which is a great tool. We use that at Disney, and lots of businesses use it. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this product or service to a colleague, and why? So you get quantitative and qualitative information from that, and it allows you to figure out if your business is growing or not. You know, if you have more detractors than promoters, the best thing you can do is close your doors, because every time a customer comes in, you're more likely to get bad reputation on the street about what you're offering. So that's the lifeblood of everything. And I think sometimes we forget about that, and we forget about the fact that we got to get people excited about this. And very good, highly, somewhat likely is not good enough. You can't have people somewhat likely to talk positively about the experience they had. They need to be highly likely. That's where you need to get them. You need that 5. You need that top score. And what I've learned over time is if you're scoring people on 1 to 5, often it looked good for our executives. We would group the 2 top boxes. We'd add the 4s and 5s together and usually come up with 95% and look like we're doing well. But we knew that when you don't get a 5, if you get anything below a 5, people are telling you could have done something better. There was something missing that didn't make it excellent. There's something missing that made me not highly likely to come back or highly likely to recommend my service to you, to others. And that's where we get caught up. You know, we work with a lot of companies, and usually when we walk in, they say, you know what, we're at 3% poor comments, and we really want to get that number to 0. Can you help us do that? And I'm pretty quick to tell people that's not where you need to be focusing your time. You're always going to have 1 or 2% poor, and you got to take care of those people. But it's the people that are having a good experience or very good experience you have to focus on, because for some reason they're not being propelled to excellent. And if they're not getting to excellent, you're missing something. And that's where your opportunity is. It's not getting the poors to goods. It's getting the very goods to great. And great quote I love is, good is the enemy of great, because we all tend to settle. It's easy to settle for good. You know what? The customer didn't complain. The employee's doing okay. So what's the problem? Well, they got to be raving about you. You have to, go at that next level and differentiate that experience. You need to be memorable. So that's the big thing I always start with is sustainable results. And if you have to have a bead on, are people coming back again? Can you measure that? How many of your customers are return customers? That's going to tell a big story into how well you're running your business and how well you're delivering your services, because they're voting with their dollars. I'm hearing these days, there's lots of chatter online, now they have Genie Plus, and now you have to pay for a fast pass, and they're pricing people out of Disney, and it's not right, and let's boycott them. You know what? No one's boycotting Disney. They're getting record attendance. And once again, people will talk all day long online about what they believe, but they're going to vote with their dollars. And if I choose to come back and give you my money a second time around, you probably did something right the first time. So I would just make sure you have a great measurement in place, because that's where the value is. Now, in order to deliver the sustainable results, customers have to leave very, very happy. They have to leave believing they had an excellent experience. I talked before about the importance of excellence. I call it responsibility of excellence. And if you give that to people, they're more likely to come back again. So obviously you have to deliver at a very high level. There's only 2 other things I want to mention on customer, guest, client satisfaction. One is your organization. The goal is to deliver perfect service every time. Get it right every time. That's the power of consistency. When you walk into Starbucks, it is the same process. It's the same menu. It's the same words. You know what that process is. And there's a lot of comfort in consistency and knowing what you're going to get. That's why places like Starbucks and Disney and McDonald's and Apple deliver, because they consistently deliver in a way that makes you comfortable with what they do. When I go to another country, I still order a venti cafe, a venti coffee, and they understand what I'm talking about. That's why I love Starbucks. I also like bitter coffee, which is a plus. But there's something about when I walk in there, wherever it is in the world, there's nice music, there's nice seating area, there's hardwood floors, and it just makes me feel comfortable. The power of consistency. So you got to get that right every single time. The other thing that's important, which I think some organizations miss, and I learned this through my career, you don't necessarily have to deliver everything at an excellent level. You're going to have areas of your business that you're not going to get that top rating. So what you got to do is figure out what's important. What are the key drivers? What are the things that your customers really are going to use to make their decision on whether they're going to come back to you again? At Disney, we had key drivers. We would go ahead and take people's experiences and the ratings of those experiences. We'd cross-reference them to come up with what were the biggest key drivers were. A key driver, for example, in finance at Disney is labor. If I want to really save money, if I focus on labor, 50% of our cost base is labor. So if I can impact 1% of labor, that's a whole bunch of money. If I focus on other expense, it's not a key driver of the expenses. That's only 3% of our base. So I can cut 1% of my other expense, but it's not going to move the needle on my savings. So what are the things that are really going to make a difference when it comes to customer service, where you have to deliver excellent? And it's different for every business. For fast food, often it's speed. Speed is the thing that's going to be the differentiator, consistently getting in and out quickly. For some organizations, it's convenience. If I can deliver a convenient service, if the stereotype of my industry is being inconvenient, if I can figure out a way to make it convenient, that's how I'm going to differentiate. And that's how customers are going to see me being excellent. At Disney, we thought about the fact that the differentiator there, we figured out over time, is rides and attractions, entertainment, and cast experience, the service you get. Those, if you can focus on those and get those right, you're going to keep growing your business. Fast food was like 32 on the key drivers list. So every time we started to focus on fast food, the research team would say, you should have hot food hot, cold food cold, and make it fast. Beyond that, don't spend any more money in that area, because even if you get your customers to 100% in fast food, it's only going to move your overall experience by less than 1 percentage point. So go focus on the things that are important. And so I would just tell you, because you all have limited time, you have limited resources in your businesses, and sometimes we get focused on the wrong things because we're just not seeing the forest for the trees, or someone told us something, or we're just not paying attention. So what are really the things that are going to make the biggest difference in your businesses? Put your time and your resources there. The one thing I would, I've been the victim of focusing on the right stuff or the wrong stuff because it was a pet project. I liked it. I wanted to get it right because it was just something I was passionate about, but I needed someone next to me to say, Dan, that's fine. You can do that in your hobby time, but don't waste your time in this big job to focus on that. And I compare the story of being in the jungle. When you're working, there's a fog of war. The emails are coming in, the calls are coming in, you're fighting the good fight. And I compare it to being in the jungle. You're at the ground level, you got a machete, you're cutting your way through the forest, you're figuring out a way to get that machete sharper. You're working on your fitness. You're working on your technique to cut vines and cut down and get through problems and get through barriers. And then one day with your group, you stop and someone says, you know what? Let's go take a look at where we are in the jungle. We're doing really well, but let's see what progress we've made. Someone looks out across the jungle and comes back down and says, hey guys, we've made great progress. There's only one problem. We're in the wrong jungle. We've been doing all this work in the wrong place. We should be 100 miles over there. That's where we should be. So once again, pick your head up every once in a while and just make sure you're focused on the right stuff. And if you do that and deliver that in an excellent way, you're going to get that intent to return, intent to recommend. Your business is going to grow. Now, who delivers that? Your employees do. Employees deliver that experience. As I got bigger, more and more responsibility at Disney, more and more I had to figure out how to duplicate myself. I couldn't be the one in the lobby of the hotel greeting every guest that came in every day. When I went to a theme park, I couldn't be at the Auto Plaza to personally greet every guest. I couldn't be there to personally sell them a ticket. I couldn't be there to personally, make their fries and cheeseburgers. I couldn't be there to load them on an attraction. So it quickly became apparent to me I better start working on the environment here. I better start working and making sure the people who are delivering the service are figuring out how to do that well, because it doesn't matter who I am. And in fact, the meetings I'm in every day, if what I'm talking about, the decisions I'm making, the things I'm focused on, if it is not impacting that experience between the frontline employee and the customer, then it's a waste of time. It doesn't matter, because I'm not creating that value. Because I can come up, we used to come out of meetings in these really nice meeting rooms. All the GMs were all high-fiving each other about the great idea we have. And I'd always remind everyone, remember, we haven't actually done anything yet. We just talked about a great idea, but until this thing's in operation and our customers, our guests are experiencing whatever idea it is, we haven't done anything yet. It's just a thought, and thoughts don't mean anything. So this idea that you got to make sure that you're getting to the front line and seeing what that experience is. And I see it every single day, the lack of focus on that frontline experience. And you all see it every day also. So I'll just give you a couple of quick examples. I'll take one or two of any unnamed airline company. When I find out that I got to change a flight or date, I just have a nervous breakdown. I'm like, this is a bridge too far. I have to actually call them. And calling them these days is an impossible feat. It's not because they don't care. And it's not because they're not busy. It's because with COVID and all the changes and flights and all the stuff that's going on, they've entered a very complicated world to operate in. And I've literally been on calls where I've gotten, thanks for calling this airline. Your call is important to us. Your wait time will be 6 hours and 28 minutes. And then the hold music comes on. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that doesn't seem reasonable to have to wait for 6 hours and 28 minutes, first of all. And I can't imagine someone went to the executives and said, hey, our call centers are really there's a lot of calls coming in. We just want to check with you. We're going to put a message on for our customers who bought airline tickets with us. And at times it's going to tell them their wait time is going to be 6 hours and 28 minutes. Is that okay? Is that reasonable? Is that a reasonable representation of our brand? And the executive said, yeah, I think that sounds okay. Let's put that message on. Someone didn't approve that. It just happened. They're scrambling. I would rather have them say, you know what, your business is important to us, and we can't answer your call right now. And if you really need to call us at midnight, and you're going to have a much better chance to get in touch with us. Otherwise, email us and we'll get back to you. I'd rather have them tell me that, or even better, like a lot of airlines are starting to do. You know what? We can't answer your call for 6 hours. Give us your number and we'll call you back. I'm like, you know what? I'll wait 2 days as long as you're calling me back. I don't care anymore. So this idea of putting yourself in the customer's shoes and seeing what the experience is from their point of view is such an underrated activity by senior leaders. And we just don't see what's happening. And I would just recommend you all, when was the last time you called your 1-800 number and bought a product? Or when was the last time you went on your own website and navigated it and clicked on all the links? And just see what happens. When was the last time you set up a meeting with yourself? How quickly did they get back to you? So I would just have you all, once again, go back to basics and test out to see what the customer experience looks like, because you're going to either see really bad policies, bad operational standards, or you're going to see employees that need better tools to get their jobs done. So as my dad likes to say, he likes to get things even more simple. There's 3 things you got to remember about your employees. 9 words: hire them right, train them right, treat them right. And in a nutshell, you got to hire the right people with the great attitudes, and that's a whole nother webinar. You got to train them right. Training is not a cost; it's an investment. As Valerie likes to say, a lot of companies worry, well, what if we invest all this training in someone, and they take that training and they parlay that into a different job and they leave? And her point of view is, well, what if you don't train them and they don't parlay it into another job and they stay and they do a bad job day over day because you decided you didn't have the time to train them well. You didn't have the time to give them the right tools and make sure they knew what their job was supposed to be. So that employee satisfaction is such a big deal. And once again, it results in great customer experience and intent to return and recommend. And that brings us to the beginning of the chain of excellence, which is leadership. Leadership has to decide what kind of culture they want to create, what kind of environment they want to create, what kind of experience they want to create for their employees. When your employee arrives on the first day, do they feel like they're welcome? Do they feel like they've made the right choice of the place that they've been? I read something on LinkedIn the other day. Someone said, I run this restaurant. I hire somebody, and at noon at the lunch break, they've already called and gotten a job that's better, and they leave, and they're only there for like 4 hours. What am I supposed to do? And I'm like, if you're running a business where the person after 4 hours has already decided they want to go get another job, there's something you're not doing right. When they arrive, you should make them feel like $100. You should have them there. You should meet with them in the first hour. Tell them what your expectations are, find out about who they are, how long they plan on staying, what their career plans are, how they've handled COVID. Explain to them what's happening. Tell them they're going to be doing training. You're going to be checking in at the end of the week to see how they're going, what their commute plan is. We call this hypercare. Most employees are going to leave in the first 90 days. It's easy to leave in the first 90 days of a new job because I don't know anybody. I don't have friends. I don't have a routine yet. It's easy to move on. And so if you get through that first 90 days, you have a much better chance of retaining people. And obviously in some companies, it's 4 hours. So are you creating an environment when people arrive, you look like you have your act together and you got everything set up and you knew they were coming? And do they know what your values are? And a lot of companies go, yeah, the values, it's honesty, integrity, respect, and diversity, and something else. Because it's in some book or it's on a wall somewhere on a plaque, and we don't remember what they are. Values should be things you put in place that are the behaviors that you've put in place. You know what? In our organization, we value integrity. If we will promise we will give our customers the right price. And if we make a mistake on that price, we will refund them. That's how we operate. So values don't mean anything until you translate them into behaviors and you translate them into standards that people understand and can go by. So comes to leadership, I would just challenge you all. Are you out there really thinking about the environment you want to create for your teams? Are you taking the time to put the processes in place and serving them? And once again, very simple. Employees have the tools to do their jobs. They feel like they're respected. They feel like they matter. They feel like they're able to contribute every day. You reduce the frustration level. If you can do that, they're going to be more likely, not guaranteed, more likely to deliver great differentiated service, and people are going to come back again and again. And it's as simple as that, and it's as hard as that. And like I said, Valerie and I do workshops, and we dive into this. We do an 8-hour session on all of these areas. What tools you need, what tactics you need to use, how to think about this, how to put these things in place to make it a sustainable process. And a lot of companies we work with, once they get to this part where you got to start getting very specific, that's the hard part. They say, maybe not. Maybe we're not as passionate about this as we thought. Because Valerie always likes to start workshops with, I have a secret for you. There is no magic. You can create magic, but there's no magic to create it. It's hard work. It's checklists. It's having intent. It's having a plan. It's being a great communicator. It's doing all the basics well. And if you do the basics well, you don't have to complicate your business. So that is, in a nutshell, kind of what we believe in and we base our whole business around. And I think we got about 20 minutes left, and this is my favorite part. So I would love to do some Q&A. If you have any comments, any questions, to put in the chat box. And if you don't, I can, like Valerie says, I kind of pull a string and I can just keep talking forever. So let's see what's on everyone's mind. Jody, any questions, or does anyone want to come off mute and challenge anything I've talked about, make comments, or have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, so let's do this. If you want to personally ask your question, raise your hand and I'll see that and call on you. If you want me to ask the question for you to Dan, then put it in the chat. So if you have a question, raise your hand. If you want to put it in the chat and have me ask it for you, I will do that. Otherwise, well, we will just pull the string and Dan will keep talking. And I see Claudine Poole has her hand up. Hello, Claudine.
Hi, Jody. I was actually clapping at your
Oh, you were
comments,
clapping.
but
Okay.
I will ask a question.
Yes,
Mr.
Claudia.
Yes, Mr. Dan. Please share a difficult time where you had to lead.
Ooh, boy. So that's a great question, because I think a lot of people automatically go to difficult situations, and that certainly I've been in those moments. So I think one of the big ones for me was, well, first of all, I didn't manage through COVID at Disney. I can't imagine what everyone went through, the complexity of that, and the ability of being unsure and still having to lead. And that was, I think, a really difficult time. I think probably one of the ones I remember best, it's when you have crisis situations or moments where it's not business as usual, and you just have to start deciding to create new rules and because you just got to keep pushing through. So one I remember particularly that was very exciting and ended up being a great event. This was back in 2015, 2016. I was a general manager of attractions and operations at the Magic Kingdom at the time. And we got a call, Disney got a call, and then we got a call and basically said, Barack Obama is going to be here in 3 days, and he wants to do a speech on Main Street, USA, in front of the castle to talk about his new immigration policy. And if you've been in events, you know that a presidential visit usually minimum is 3 months notice, not 3 days notice. And everyone who's going to be on site has background checks. There's walkthroughs of the Secret Service. And what happened was, if we had done that, we would have had at least 150 meetings just to plan this event. Now, the best thing that could have happened, we got 3 days notice. We didn't have time to have meetings. And what I saw happen in myself and everyone that was at Disney, everyone just went into leadership mode. And it was kind of scary, because we're like, what if we don't have a meeting? We make a decision. Is someone to come back and say, well, you didn't ask me about that? But we started to jump in. And in fact, you know what? Let me change that a little bit. I actually wasn't the general manager. I was the vice president of Disney's Hollywood Studios at the time. But I called Phil Holmes, the vice president of Magic Kingdom, and I said, hey, you got the president coming to your park. What can I do? Because I figured if I was in his shoes, I'd want people calling me. He didn't even have time to call people to reach out. So he said, I need you to arrange the arrival for all the VIPs, everyone who's going to drive in from Orlando and internationally. I need you to figure out where they're going to park. I need you to get their itineraries, where they're staying. I need you to make sure you bus them in. You figure out seating, where they're going to be for the speech, and run all those logistics. And I said, okay, I got that. What else do you need done? And he gave me a list of things to be done. And I went out and just started talking and pulling in other executives and other general managers. And I called people I knew and said, I need you for 3 days. If I need to call your boss, let me know, but I need you today. And we're having a meeting in an hour to start this. And we went after that. And so for me, at the first hour or two of that process was really hard, because I didn't know how much empowerment I had. But I realized that, the president's coming. No one's told me to wait, and so go. And I think sometimes that's probably one of the hard things we have during these crisis periods is, are we supposed to step up or not? Are we supposed to? And it's easy. If you sit back, people are too busy to tell you to step up. They're going to realize after the fact, a week or two, a month later, like, man, we got through that. Where were you? And so you have to decide, what kind of leader do you want to be? Do you want to be one to step in and take that on? Because taking it on means you can now make mistakes. You're now taking on responsibility and accountability. And there's many areas that I've seen that leaders don't take responsibility because it's not in their job description. And it's easier to say, you know what, if I don't step up, then I'm not taking any risks. I'll be neutral on this. There's no upside and there's no downside. But I think the people that get ahead in life, they're the ones that are willing to see that they need to step up into those situations. And sometimes that's very hard to do. And once you do it, you get addicted to it, because you realize, wow, your fate is in your own hands. And I see leaders do that all the time. In organizations that really run well, they have this, I think they have this credo, which we like to talk about. It may not be your fault, but it's your problem. And if you can take that approach, it's not your fault, but it's your problem, you're going to do really well. We were just in Brazil, and we met with some shipping companies. The biggest port in South America is in a city called Santos, which is about a 1 hour drive from Sao Paulo. And we met with 5 or 6 shipping companies. and they ship, I mean, the amount of stuff they ship into South America and Brazil is just amazing. And we talked with them and we said, what are you looking for? And how are you trying to improve your customer service and language? And we talked to them about all this kind of stuff. And what we realized was the shipping business, they're part of the supply chain. And basically we mapped out what had to happen for them to get a pair of sneakers for a store in Sao Paulo to be produced in China and into that shop. And there's governments involved along the way. There are suppliers, there are factories, there are delivery companies in the country of origin. Then it has to go through customs, then it has to go through them, then it has to go on a truck and get to that store. And the ones that we saw were successful said, we take responsibility for the whole supply chain. We influence as much as we can up and down that supply chain, because our customers don't want to hear the Brazilian government just changed the policy and the law. Your tennis shoes are going to take 2 months to get here. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, I'm on it. I'm figuring this out. I'm going to keep working with you and keep you up to speed. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but anyway, that's a moment where I realized that was hard to step up. But once again, when you do that, you're putting yourself in a position that it feels good. It feels good to kind of to take care of that. And that's how you build, I think you build your reputation over time of being a problem solver and someone that can knock down barriers and figure things out.
Dan, we've got 3 more questions. I like that example though, because in the last 2 years, we've had a lot of individuals and organizations start to use COVID and the supply chain as an excuse of why they can't serve you. And it's become just accepted now. So it's really interesting, someone that would take the supply chain as their responsibility, or because in your Disney example, you guys could have said 3 days notice, there's nothing we can do. But instead you say, well, there's plenty we can do, and let's do it. All right. We've got 12 minutes with 3 more questions, Dan.
All right.
Here we go. Amanda Brooks. Hi, you're up next.
Hi.
Amanda?
Dan, now that you work for yourself and you don't really have employees, how do you work leadership into your chain of excellence?
Yeah, so great question. And I think this applies to me as an entrepreneur, and I think it applies to everyone here. Often when we work in organizations, when we think about leadership, we look at an org chart and we think to ourselves, okay, who's under my responsibilities? And often that's just what finance decided your structure is going to be. Your company runs much differently than your org structure does. Org structure is one thing, but when it comes to how you actually have to get work done, you got to work with everybody. And so, for example, when I worked, in theme parks, we had a very much of a matrix functional organization. So I was responsible for the day-to-day operations of the park. And under my responsibility was the daily operations of attractions, merchandise, food and beverage, entertainment, engineering. But I had a bunch of departments that didn't report to me that were key to my success. Horticulture, they reported up through a different organization, and they were contracted out to take care of Magic Kingdom's horticulture internally. Security, security operated in my park, but they all reported up through a vice president of security. Industrial engineering, finance, human resources. The list goes on and on and on about that. I think there was more departments in Magic Kingdom that didn't report to me that did report to me. But if you're going to take responsibility as a leader and say, I'm the captain of the ship, I considered every department reported to me. When I say reported to me, it meant I was there to help them get the resources they need to be able to deliver what they needed to deliver. Because, when a guest writes a letter and says, I had a bad experience in security, my letter back is, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm the vice president of Magic Kingdom, but security really isn't up under me. So I forwarded it to the security guy. He'll let you know what happened. That's not acceptable. So I considered them, and I told my team, I don't care the org structure. I don't care what silos, and you have to have silos in organizations to create structure. You can't just have an open organization. There has to be it has to be defined. But I told everyone, just assume. They said, well, in this new structure, who do we report to? I said, you know what? I assume I report to everybody. If there's an executive, I just report to them, and I'm going to do everything I can to help them. If they call me, I'm going to help them out. I'm not going to have them call my boss. I'm going to make that relationship. And when you start thinking about your business that way, it makes it a lot of fun. And when you're an entrepreneur, I consider that I report to everyone. I work with lots and lots of people who I contract with, and I have agreements with, and I consider them a part of my team. And I do everything just like I would manage everything else as someone who reported directly to me. So don't get caught up in these structures to decide how you're going to lead. You should be a leader all the time and take responsibility no matter what the situation. And I think you'll be in a much better place. Quick story, we had a big event every year, a party for all our cast members. We built a gigantic circus tent. We had bands and food, and it was just kind of a recognition, appreciation event. And one year someone said, is security invited? I said, well, what do you mean is security invited? They say, well, they don't report up through us. We don't have a budget. We don't get a budget for the party for them. I'm like, you're really not going to feed the people who are finding people coming in with guns and bad people. I'm like, they should get filet mignon. So yes, they're invited. They can come in and they can eat as much as they want. If they bring a friend, they can come too. We can afford it. So once again, don't get caught up in the little stuff. Be a leader and be an example all the time, whether it's for your kids, your spouse, out in the community. And it shouldn't be situational. It should be, I think, a behavior. You should live what you believe in. And once again, sometimes we get kind of wrapped up backwards because we're worried about who reports to who. And over time, it really doesn't matter because that's going to be real. That changes every year in most organizations.
All right. Thank you for the question, Amanda. Our next question comes from Bill Lupfer from the Florida Attractions Association. Hi, Bill.
Hey, good afternoon. Dan, this has been great. And I really appreciate the talk about leadership and culture. And one of the things that I've enjoyed in my career is impressing organizational culture on the folks that reported to me. I wonder if you could speak for a moment, though, about the disconnect when you are working for a leader who may not have a culture that would support this satisfaction that you're talking about.
Yeah. So this is a good one because people say, well, okay, Dan, fine. Everyone reports to me. I'm the role model. I can make that happen. But the person above me, I can't tell them what to do. I can't tell them how to do their job, and I can't correct that. So I think there's a few things you can do. One is that person open to feedback? And if they are, they're probably already doing a pretty good job leading the group. But you can start to test for that. You know, are they willing to take feedback? And you can start to do that. Then when you get to a point where, because every leader you work for, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be things that lack. And most people like to talk about that when they talk about their leader. In my mind, it has to is if your leader gets to a point where you're just saying the pain is too much now. It's too much to work around. Because I've had leaders that were, I consider, I won't call them micromanagers, but way into more detail than I expect they ever should be. I had some leaders who had a 10-second attention span. And, you know, I'm sure I know as a leader, I had my shortcomings also, but as long as they have most of what they do is bearable and you can still do your job and you're not miserable in doing that, you should hang around, keep working on them, be the role model for them, and they might change. And sometimes they won't. And that's where you got to make a big decision. Am I willing to leave? Am I willing to go to another department? If you don't see a way, then you got to go. You got to leave and you got to be on your way. Because if the organization has a strong culture, that person shouldn't be able to last for too long because the culture should weed them out. So if that leader, whatever they're doing is way outside of the guidelines of what the organization believes, and they're sticking around, it means the organization may not believe as much in what the culture should be as you think. So it comes down to put up with it, manage it, and when you're ready to go, then you can really take that risk and go to your boss and say, look, I got some big issues. I really want to talk with them. If they're not interested, then you need to be ready to go. If you're not ready to go, don't have that conversation because you're going to be in a tough spot after that. But if you already made a decision, I'm ready to go out the door unless this changes, then have that big okay corral moment, that Alamo moment, and go say, look, I got some issues and I'm really thinking about leaving. I think 80% of the time, that person's gonna look at you like stunned, can't believing that that's what's happening, and they don't realize what's going on. It's not an excuse, but either they're going to turn it around or they're not. And then you're going to have to make your decision. It's unfortunate because you may say, I don't want to go, but I've worked in organizations where sometimes you say, you can't pay me enough to work for that person. I don't care what you give me. I can't do that because we work a lot of hours, and it's very unhealthy to be in an environment where you're working for someone where you have so much not in common with. There's no alignment, and that can be really hard. So that's the truth of it. The chances of you changing your boss often is pretty low, but hopefully over time you can either do that or you're just going to have to go find your happiness someplace else. Thanks, Bill.
Dan, we have our final question. The timing works out perfect. This comes from Matthew Waller, and he said, as a student at Georgia Tech, what is something you wish a young professional would know before getting into their professional career, whether in themed entertainment or another industry?
Great question. My cousin went to Georgia Tech, got her master's there, and she's working for Shell Oil now down in Argentina. So education is a good thing. I think the big thing I had this mindset when I was growing up. We traveled a lot. We moved a lot when I was growing up. So I was used to going to different places and getting diverse experiences. I had 19 different jobs at Disney. I was always moving. My wife, when she was 16 years old, she left France and moved to London to learn English. And so she's always been an adventurer and looking for these experiences. I would just say, for my personal opinion, that one of the big things, the key to a fulfilling life, an interesting life, and a great a career path is making sure that you constantly are getting diverse experiences, whether that's traveling or doing jobs that have nothing to do with what you might be interested in, or taking an interest in something you know nothing about. You got to open up your mind to really take in. There's so much to learn out there. And it's easy to get so focused on, I want to get to that job. It's 3 levels above me, but that's all I'm worried about. The thing is, by the time you're ready for that job that you were really looking at, that job may be gone. It's probably going to be gone, restructured, and it doesn't exist anymore. So what I've learned over my career is just be flexible, learn how to change, learn how to adapt. I think there's a quote out there somewhere. It's not the strong or the fast that will survive. It's those who can adapt, and just learn how to change. And I've every job I went into, I didn't know what I was going to learn, but I knew it was going to help me long term. And experience is always, you realize how valuable it is in hindsight. And you realize, wow, if I hadn't had that food and beverage experience, if I hadn't had that international experience, if I hadn't taken on that project, I wouldn't be eligible to take the next job ahead of me. So just have faith that getting diverse experiences and being in a constant learning mode is going to open so many more doors for you. And so don't get bogged down because the world, there's so many jobs out there and so many opportunities, and it's hard to see that as a student sometimes. But once you get out there, you're going to create what you want to create for yourself, and there's going to be more opportunity to do that. So be open-minded and just have a thirst and a passion for learning something every single day. And I think if you do that, you're going to have a great time, and you're going to be in a position where people are going to want to hire you, because those people are the minority.
All right. Thank you for the great questions. And let me see, we've got one thing below what I see in the chat. All right. Matthew said, thank you for your thoughts. Great advice. We're at the very end, and I kind of hijacked this call and ran with it with Dan, but I want to make sure David has a chance to say hello and close us out.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Back to what you mentioned earlier, Dan, about it's not your fault, but it's your problem. I don't know how much it affected it, but it wasn't my fault that I didn't know that LinkedIn didn't put the passcode on all this, but it was my problem. So thank you, Jody, for not necessarily pinch hitting, but coming in and taking a solid bat. So I do appreciate that. And what a timely subject, just delivering experiences on world-class experiences on consistency, because if there's anything that's been happening the last 2 years that has been not anyone's fault, but their problem, has been COVID. I mean, anytime that you're talking about Disney that hasn't been closed a day in its existence, maybe with the exception of 9/11 years ago, to be closed months. And I think California is closed over a year. That's true. But wow. And if whoever's running those parks, empty concourses at the parks, not their fault, but their problem to figure out. And
Yep.
it's just an ongoing thing. And in the delivering experiences can take any level, different paths. And it was just something that I was glad you decided to come on and address today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you setting this up, Dave. And thanks for joining us on a Friday, everybody. Don't worry about reaching out to us. We have your emails. We will be in touch. We'll let you know all the stuff we have and opportunities. And I'm a big advocate. Everything starts with relationships. And once you start relationships, business happens. Opportunities happen because you build trust and you look for wins, which is why we do webinars like this. So we'll keep in touch with you. We'll make sure you can know where to find us. And hopefully we'll keep in touch over time. But I wish everyone good luck. Like I said, I think the future is very bright and positive. Things are coming, but there's going to be challenges. That's what life's all about. So whether it's going to be COVID or a war or other things, we just got to keep moving forward because we have no choice. Once again, it's not our fault, but it's our problem. And I think that mindset is the key to success and happiness. So thanks for joining. Hope everyone has a great weekend. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.